Hey guys, it's good to be back. I think when we left off, we were we had just ripped off the Mexican mafia, and we were back to being in our car. But at least we had some product with us, so we were kind of okay with it. Okay. Now, um, what happened next was actually kind of stupid. So we spent the next it was only 3 or 4 days partying and selling off those that dope and getting all kinds of people high for free. And um, we went on a 3 or 4 day kind of a bender. And by the end of it, we had about a quarter ounce left. Um, we also had about a 16th of some just pure crystal left as well that we had kept in our personal kind of stash. And we get that separate from the rest of it. I remember this specifically, and I'll explain to you why here in a second. So, again, keeping in mind this victory was very short lived. So we decide to go sleep off the bender, and we find a place that we feel is out, kind of in the middle of nowhere. There's not a lot around, and so we decided to just go sleep in the car. And we got all situated, and Wade was supposed to lock the lockbox that the major amount was in. The 16th was actually, there was a rip in the seat of the car, and the 16th was shoved into that rip. And that becomes kind of funny and not important, but funny later on. So he forgot to lock the lockbox, put it down on the floor, and we went to sleep. We woke up to a police officer knocking on the car window. Now, at this point, we both believed that box was locked. And we also both believed that they needed a search warrant to open it. So we were feeling safe enough, anyways. The police officer pulls us out of the car, asks what we've been doing all night. We tell him we're homeless and we just needed a place to sleep. I guess some passing motorists had seen us way off the road in the distance and thought we were in trouble, and so they had reported to have someone come check on us. So the cop was like, "Do you mind if we search the car?" Now, we did this stupid thing thinking the box was locked and said, "I guess you can search the car." Really not thinking that things would go down the way they did. Well, he goes digging through the car, pulls out the lockbox, opens it up, and immediately calls for backup. Puts us in handcuffs. He gets on the radio, and I hear him triumphantly say, "Hey, I need backup up here." And you could hear the other guy say, "What'd you find?" And he goes, "Bunch of meth. These guys are going down." It was like, oh my God. So we went to jail that day. We sat in booking for long enough to be completely uncomfortable. And then when they took us finally into the our cells or whatnot, then they started pulling us out to talk to detectives. And so we fabricated this big whole story about how we got it from a big fat guy they call Skinny, ironically. And it was funny because Wade was saying kind of similar. They had us separated, but he was saying similar things. That we got it from a fat guy they called Skinny because that was like always our go-to. It was kind of a joke. So we both thought to use it, and we sat in jail for about a month, going back and forth with detectives, proclaiming that it was just personal. It was only a quarter ounce, so they had us on a level 1 trafficking, but neither one of us had any priors at all. I think that we had a misdemeanor for shoplifting some food, which we'd done together a few months before that, but nothing big. And so anyways, so we go in front of the judge, and they tried to give us a plea bargain at first, which was going to give us prison time automatically, and we refused that. And eventually we came to a plea agreement that got us out on probation with a possession with intent to sell and a suspended sentence, a 1 year suspended sentence, and we were released. And again, we would have probably been out sooner, like on an OR, but we didn't have an address to go to, so we had to kind of sit there for trial and all that stuff. So we got released, and we immediately got out and checked in with our probation officer, which we had the same one. Our case was the same. And we got us a little cheap hotel room on Lake Street, which was, it was a pretty divey place, but it was a place to go. And it had a bathroom and a small kitchen with a 2-burner gas stove. And it was basically all we needed for then. And so at this point, we were taking turns working. Wade got a job at a plastic place, which was actually starting to pay. So we were, after a little while, we were able to move. We stayed on Lake Street, but we found a fourplex, kind of like a 1-bedroom apartment that was part of an old house. And it was a big step up from where we were before. So we took it, and we actually loved that place for a little while. Now, we figured out after the first couple of drug tests that they let us know when our appointments were coming up, and that we could get away with getting high as long as we detoxed, 2 or 3 days before we went in there. Now, the first time they actually showed up at our hotel, because they told us to check in the next day, and there was some kind of a miscommunication. So they showed up with 3 cops and 2 probation officers, beat down the door, and we were right where we were supposed to be. And we had to actually pee with open doors that day. That was a little bit awkward, but after that, we were doing everything we were supposed to, paying all our fees and kind of staying on the up and up. And so they decided that we were kind of low risk, and so so again, we immediately started getting high maybe a month after we got out, because we figured out that we could get away with it. At this point, I got a job at Burger King as well, just because our probation was putting pressure on me and expecting us to both be working because we're on probation. So I worked at Burger King, and I figured out a way to rip Burger King off, rob them blind every day without them ever knowing it. I'll explain how in my book. It's a long story, but I did figure it out. And so about 3-4 months passed by, and I'm trying to think like the sequence of events. I don't want to mess this up. So after a little bit, we moved into an even bigger apartment over in Idlewild, and we started having problems, fighting a lot. And at some point, I found out I was pregnant. So I stopped getting high. It took me about a month and a half. So I did cheat a little bit at the beginning, but I found out I was pregnant, and I did get sober. And my ex-husband did not. He said he did. I had my suspicions because he was really hard to tell when he was in the first place, but he was working nights at Cantex at the plastic place, and so he was up all night while I slept, and it was because we weren't seeing each other a lot that he was able to get away with it. The day I went to go give birth, I basically found a balled up piece of tinfoil in his pocket. So obviously, and it had burn marks on it. He'd been smoking at work. And so we got in a big, huge fight as I was giving birth to our daughter. I tried to forgive him. We were stayed together for about 3 more months. I tried to forgive him. And I started getting high again after I stopped breastfeeding, because he was all of a sudden making no secret of it, telling me he didn't see why he had to be sober just because I did. It wasn't his problem, things of that nature. And so again, we started what was like an inseparable relationship started to get torn apart at the seams. Now, during this time, 2 things happened. I caught him cheating on me, which did not end well for him. And again, I'll explain that one in my book. That's one thing that I don't want to talk about openly, but I will very, very well explain it in my book. And his best friend Kenny moved in. He was just coming to visit. He decided to stay for a while because we were fighting a lot and we had a small baby in the house. He was being helpful. Now, I've been told along the way that he had his sights on me, but he never advanced towards me. He was there for me as a friend. We were very close. He was kind of taking my side in these arguments because again, Wade did get a little bit violent, and it's really hard on a person. And so once I caught him cheating, I packed my stuff and I moved in with Amy for a few months till I could find my own place with my baby. And Kenny ended up coming with me. And again, at this point, still completely innocent. After a couple of months with Amy, I found an apartment nearby where she lived and got my own place. And Kenny came with me. A little bit after we started living together there, then we started to become romantically involved. And we were actually together for close to a year before everything blew up in my face. So I liked Kenny being there. He didn't work, so he was there to watch the baby. I was still working at Burger King, and I could get away with whatever I wanted. I started low-key dealing again. I found someone, we just called her Red, who was a cook. And between her and the guy that taught her later, and what's ironic is everyone called that guy Skinny. And so that was just a weird coincidence, but everyone called him Skinny. And that's, he is a guy that ultimately got me in all the trouble, but he taught me how to manufacture methamphetamine, and I started manufacturing my own and selling it. I figured out along the way that you could cut it with caffeine just by accident. Someone worked at the Coca-Cola bottling plant and wanted to trade some caffeine for some dope, and so I got to experimenting with it while high one day and figured out I could cut it. That was actually a while back, but I was using that to help profit off of it. And so on one of these journeys, I ran into the runner from the Mexican mafia randomly at a store, and he saw me, I saw him, and I hoped he did not recognize me, but he did. I kept walking and pretend I didn't recognize him, and the next thing I know, I'm knocked out cold. I woke up in the trunk of his car. He took me to the big guy who we just, again, it wasn't his real name. We didn't know any real names, but we called him Pelon, which I think is like Baldy or Harry or something like that in Spanish. But anyways, he took me to him, and I was on my knees execution style in front of him with a gun to my head. And he was screaming at me, "Tell me why I shouldn't kill you now. Tell me why. Give me one reason." And I had a choice at this point. I could either start crying and beg for mercy or do what I really wanted to do and get angry. So I started laughing. And I turned around and I looked him square in the eyes with the gun right here between him. And I said, "You're just pissed off because I ripped you off better than you ripped me off." And he started laughing. And he pulled me up to my feet. And he said, "You know what, Weta, you do have a point there." And so we talked it out. I got a little bit of respect from him that day. And he didn't kill me, obviously. But we did agree that I would stay off his turf and away from his customers. And he would squash our debt and we would call it even. So that's probably the luckiest I've ever gotten, probably in my life to date. And I just made a call and I made the right one, thank God. So next time we leave out, or I'm leaving off now. Okay, next time we start back up. That's where we are right after that. And when what happened just after starts to get bigger. All right. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share like crazy. I really appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. And I will see you, I guess, on Monday, unless I get a chance over the weekend. All right. Thanks, guys.